Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses as we continue with Part 20, The Rosicrucians, from A History of Secret Societies by Arkon Daraul. Chapter 19, The Rosicrucians. No authentic document has ever been seen by an impartial observer to show that the Rosicrucian Order is of the antiquity which is usually claimed for it. Its very elusiveness is, however, part of its charm, because it seems people want to believe, and have, since its existence was announced, always wanted to believe that there is such a thing. The work of the student is not helped by the fact that there have been several organizations which claim to be the true Rosicrucians, to hold the only secrets which are worth having, to preserve certain ancient wisdom which will in some magical way give the aspirant what he needs. The approach is, in any case, psychologically sound. There are few people who feel completely fulfilled. Of the rest, at least some of them at any given time want a shortcut to what they think they need. In 1597 we find the first traces of the Rose-Cross Brotherhood. During that year, a certain alchemist is said to have traveled through certain parts of Europe, seeking to found a society which should carry out alchemical researches. Little is known about his success, but 8 years later was published a book which gives a Rosicrucian constitution. It was, however, in 1614 at Kassel that the General Reformation of the World appeared. This work included a tract called the Fama Fraternitatis, which purported to give the history of the founding of the order. According to this work, Christian Rosenkreuz was a German nobleman who founded the order in the 14th century. He had been sent to a monastery in 1378 to learn Greek and Latin. One of the monks took him to Cyprus on the way to the Holy Land and died. Christian, now alone and 16 years of age, journeyed to a place called Damcar, which is supposed to be in Arabia, though there is no record of any such place, to visit certain holy men. He traveled in Arabia, which would have been very unlikely for a Christian at that time, and studied at Fez and in Egypt. He brought his knowledge back to Europe. In Spain, which is the only place in the West where his alleged Arab learning of the time would have been readily acceptable, he says they would not listen to him, although only the most northern part was under non-Moorish rule. Perhaps, as one writer has observed, Rosenkreuz was too mystically minded a person to notice this. He retired to Germany, where he made many disciples, having formulated the great wisdom which he had received into a system which was to save mankind. He died at the age of 150 years, not because he had to, it is noted, but because he wanted to, which seems a good enough reason. The organization was secret. The work which the disciples did was to heal the sick. In the year 1604, one of his followers caused his tomb to be opened and found strange inscriptions and a manuscript in golden letters. The Rosicrucians claimed that they felt no hunger, nor did they ever suffer from thirst. They could command spirits and make themselves invisible. They attracted to their persons precious stones and jewels. The objective of the organization was to restore the supposed lost secret of science, particularly medicine. In addition, they were dedicated to providing the world's rulers with treasures so that they could look after their subjects better. Small wonder that people wanted to believe in the existence of such a fraternity. The selfish and unselfish alike clamored to join. The requirements of members were not difficult of granting. They were to cure the sick without fee, wear the clothes of the land in which they lived, attend one meeting of the order each year, choose a successor when on their deathbed. Finally, the members had to keep the secrets of the order for 100 years. Tibetan ritual mask in copper, used in initiation rites of Himalayan miracle makers organized in secret societies. Mithra slaying the bull, a statue of initiatory significance to the Mithra cult, which profoundly affected secret societies. Magicians invoking a spirit in a churchyard. Since the appearance of the Fama, the excitement about the Rosicrucians has continued, if not unabated, until the present day. No sooner had the first edition of the Fama been issued than it was sold out. People claimed that they were members, Illuminati of the order, and many of them lacked no disciples. Others wrote pamphlets stating that the whole thing was a fraud. Some of the defenders of the order who burst into print are almost pathetic in their entreaties to be admitted to the fraternity. There is no doubt that much of the literature which sprang up as a result of the publicity is bogus. Rosicrucian literature, especially among the Germans of the 18th century, indicates a strong preoccupation with alchemy. But this is an alchemy of the soul, not actual transmutation of metals. It is the transforming of the ordinary man into something more sublime. The possible actual transmutation of metals is denounced by the farmer. The episode of Johann Valentine Andrea is an interesting one in the Rosicrucian story. This writer was a Lutheran, and it seems certain that he used the order for the dissemination of Protestantism. The organization was eventually penetrated by Catholics who turned its bias towards support for Holy Mother Church. Andrea now denounced the order and founded another called the Fraternitas Christi. Then another order, the Blue Cross, sprang up. But later, with the inspiration of Andrea, Rosicrucianism spread far and wide. Before 1785, when the order was suppressed by the Austrian emperor, who spared the Freemasons alone in his drive against secret societies, the society had a well-established method of initiation. The room of initiation was carpeted in green, and on it were a number of objects. A globe of glass stood on a pedestal with 7 steps, was divided into 2 parts, symbolizing light and darkness. 3 candelabra were placed to form a triangle, and 9 glasses indicated the male and female properties, the quintessence and other things. A brazier, a circle, and a napkin completed the ritualistic items. The initiate was brought by a sponsor who first took him into a room where these objects were laid on a table: a candle, bare sword, pen, ink and paper, sealing wax, and 2 red cords. Now the candidate was asked whether he was still strongly of a mind to become a student of true wisdom. If he answered that he was, he surrendered his hat and sword and paid his fee of 3 gold pieces. Now his hands were bound, a red cord placed about his neck, and he was taken to the door of the lodge. His sponsor knocked 3 times, and the doorkeeper opened it. The following secret dialogue ensued between doorkeeper and sponsor.
Who is there?
An earthly body hiding, imprisoned in ignorance, the spiritual man.
What is to be done with him?
Kill the body, purify the spirit.
Then bring him to the place of justice.
The party enter and stand in front of the circle, making the candidate kneel. The master stands on his right side with a white wand, and the sponsor on his left, sword in hand. Both wear aprons. The next part of the initiation takes place between the master and candidate.
Child of man, I conjure you through all degrees of profane Freemasonry, and by the endless circle which embraces all creatures and contains the highest wisdom, tell me, why have you come here?
To acquire wisdom, art, and virtue.
Then live, but your spirit must again rule your body. You have found grace, arise and be free.
The initiate is unbound and enters the circle. The master and the sponsor hold their instruments crosswise, and the candidate lays 3 of his fingers upon them. There is a pause until the master says the words,
Then listen.
This is the signal that the oath is to be repeated. This takes the form of an affirmation that the brother will have no secrets from other members and that he will live a chaste life. He is ceremonially handed the regalia, the seal, password and sign, the hat and sword. Certain mysteries are explained to him. These are the mysteries. There is a mystical table divided into 9 vertical and 13 horizontal sections. The first column of 9 give the numbers, the second the names of the various degrees of initiation. The lowest rank is that of juniors, who have been told almost nothing. The highest are the magi, who know all. Their jewel is an equilateral triangle. What was the meaning of the rose and cross device? It is more than possible that there was no such man as Christian Rosenkreuz, Rose-Cross, but it is a singular coincidence that Andrea was a fervent Lutheran, and Martin Luther's coat of arms bore a rose and cross. Other guesses have also been hazarded to account for this symbolism. The cross, according to the alchemists, stands for light, so the meaning may be light of the rose. If this is so, there is a curious parallelism with the Arabic school of Illuminati, who followed Abdelkader Gilani. His device is a rose, and he is known as the light of the rose. The path of practical mysticism which this Sufi established in the 12th century at Baghdad was, and is still, for the Qadiri order, is an important one, called Sebel el-Ward, the path of the rose. Still stranger, in some Eastern countries the word Sibyl, path, is sometimes mispronounced colloquially as Salib, cross. But the initiation and other ceremonies and tenets of the Rosicrucians do not seem to accord in any one particular, save that of spiritual alchemy, with those of the followers of the Path of the Rose. It is just possible that the Baghdad order did influence Western mysticism, if only because practically the totality of the alchemy of the Middle Ages was passed to Europe by the Arabs. Among another secret mystical cult of Syria, the word, which means secret conjurations, repetitions of words of power, devotional exercises, and is a technical term of Islamic mysticism, is represented by a symbol, the rose, which is ward, as a mnemonic. The path of the word, if this were taken as a direct translation, would be immediately understood by any member of an Arab, Persian, or Pakistani mystical order to this day. The only trace in Western literature which might connect Rosicrucianism with Sufism, however, apart from this strange coincidence of names, is the mention of the practices of the Spanish Illuminati. They are mentioned at times as being connected with the Rosicrucians. There are grounds for believing that they had associations with a Muslim mystical order, but it is their method of carrying out their spiritual concentration which links them strongly to the Sufi mystics. As with the Sufis, the Illuminati Alumbrados of Spain, before they were suppressed as heretics by the Church, practiced concentration upon the will of their master or teacher in a supernatural or illuminated union of minds. The Alumbrados were put down in 1623 by an edict of the Grand Inquisition. If Rosicrucianism was in fact an adaptation of sublime Eastern thought or not, it soon deteriorated from its marvelous claims, at least in the person of those who professed or supported its doctrines. In England, the mystic Robert Flood became its staunch protagonist in 1616. The true Rosicrucians, he said, although he was plainly not one of them, were continually traveling through the world, unknown by the vulgar mass. They were sublime personages. The sons of God were not known to the world because they did not want to be known. Haydn, who was born in 1629, was another of their followers and defenders. This lawyer wrote that they were the real guardians of the sublime secrets, that they were of the nature of Moses, Elias and others, and they were seraphically illuminated. Haydn felt that it was a criminal thing to eat, for there was nutriment in the air for those who knew about it. Those who wanted to satisfy their appetites could inhale the aroma of a plate of cooked meat placed on the stomach. A Rosicrucian society was formed in London by a number of savants whose names are still well known. Among them were Elias Ashmole, William Lilly, Dr. Thomas Wharton, Dr. Hewitt, and Dr. Pearson. They were less secret in their ways than most hidden cults, for only the recognition signals were reserved for the initiated. The rituals which they practiced, and probably concocted for themselves, were a mixture of Masonic ones and the symbolism of the alchemists. The objective was to refine mankind by spiritual means. The carpet in their lodge was representative of the Pillar of Hermes, who knew all sciences. There were 7 steps, standing for the 4 elements and salt, sulfur, and mercury, the main ingredients used by the alchemists, which led to a stage upon which were displayed symbols of the creation, which took place in 6 days. A Rosicrucian who recorded some of his dreamings, or a part of his beliefs, according to your prejudice, was Joseph Francis Borri, a Milanese who fell foul of the Inquisition because he attacked papal abuses. He was condemned to perpetual imprisonment, but left behind the fascinating key of the Cabinet of Signor Borri, which is a romance in which many Rosicrucian notions are to be found. This is also known as the story of the Count of Gabalis, published in 1670 by the Abbé de Villars. It is made clear in the pages of this work that Rosicrucians do not believe in witchcraft, sorcery, or incubi and succubi. The whole of mankind is surrounded by elemental spirits which can do him service. These could be brought to his will by the Rosicrucian by imprisoning them in a ring, a mirror, or a stone, and compelling them to appear when desired. Here is a distinct parallel with Arabian Kabbalistical literature, some of which, folklorized, is in the Arabian Nights. These jinns were not subject to such limitations as those of space and time, but were limited by not being immortal. They could win eternal life, however, by gaining the love of a human being. The description of these spirits almost seems to echo the sort of thing which modern man is told about radioactive substances. They were made of pure elements from the matter which they inhabited, and like radioactive isotopes, they lived for a restricted period of time, 1,000 years. At least some branches of the Rosicrucians seem to have practiced or attempted the chemical transmutation of base metals into gold, and there may have been a good deal of magical experimentation as well. The celebrated Paracelsus, alchemist, philosopher and magician, is named as the monarcha of an alchemical order in a book published in 1607. The society was formed by a Count Bernard in Germany after being initiated into a circle of 15 in Italy, which claimed to have been founded in 1410. This society is said to have been merged with the Rosicrucians in 1607, and a further document, which was discovered in the 1870s, gives further information as to their signs and activities. Dr. von Harless, in Jacob Boehmer and the Alchemists, tracks the order down in Germany in the year 1641. He quoted a document of 1765, which contains the statutes of the Order of the Rosicrucians and is named the Testament. Directions are given for alchemical operations and warnings to avoid Roman Catholics as enemies of Protestants. The chief of the order was called the imperator, and all members were to change their places of residence every 10 years. Their very existence was to be kept a secret. Apprenticeship lasted for no less than 7 years. Recognition signs are also given, the salutation being Ave Frater and the answer Rosei et Aureae. Now the first continued, Crucia, upon which both chorused Benedictus Deus qui dedit nobis signum. Each now produced his copy of the seal which they were to carry. The various splinters from the Rosicrucians themselves formed orders and cults, which cropped up almost everywhere that credulous or gullible people could be found. Some of them became quite powerful. Others centered around a leader or magus who merely made money out of admission fees. The Asiatic Brethren is an offshoot of Rosicrucianism, collecting within its fold people of all creeds, including Jews, Turks, Persians and Armenians. The Order of the Brotherhood of Asia was founded about 1780. The teachings concern such matters as how to tame spirits and employ them through the 7 Arabian seals, how to make gold and how to prepare miraculous medicaments. The order was not officially termed Rosicrucian, but purported to contain all the elements of the earlier order. Initiation was in 5 degrees, 2 of them probationary and 3 chief degrees. For 14 months, the members of the first degree, the seekers, who were limited to 10, waited for promotion. Each fortnight they attended lectures and they wore a distinctive costume. Seekers, to be properly dressed, had to wear round black hats with black feathers, a black cloak, a black sash with 3 rose buttons, white gloves, a sword with a black tassel, and a black ribbon supporting a double triangle. The triangle symbol was also embroidered upon the left side of the cloak. The seeker became a sufferer when his period of probation was over, and he was now expected to carry out practical researches during the 7 months in which he remained a member of this degree. There were 10 members dressed in black hats with black and white feathers, black cloaks with white linings and collars, upon which the double triangle symbol was embroidered in gold. Their black sashes and white edging and 3 rosettes and their swords had black and white tassels. The knights and brother initiates from Asia in Europe wore white, black, yellow and red crosses and green roses and so on. The initiation into the degree of sufferer was thus. The candidate was led into a room hung with black and the floor and furniture covered in black cloth. The room was lit by a central candlestick in the shape of a human figure with a white robe and girdle of gold. There were also 6 other 5-branched golden candlesticks. The seat of the master stood on a dais, below which were 3 steps under a square canopy of black, and the back wall was partly open but held back with 7 tassels, and behind it was the holiest of holies, consisting of a balustrade of 10 columns, on the basement of which was a picture of the sun in a triangle surrounded by the divine fire. Under the center candlestick was the carpet of the 3 Masonic degrees, surrounded by 9 lights, a 10th light standing a little farther off at the foot of the throne. There stood on the right a small table on which were placed a flaming sword with the number 56 engraved thereon, and a green rod with 2 red ends. To the left lay the Book of the Law. It was not until the higher degrees that the revelation of secrets began. Whether there ever were any such secrets is open to the most serious doubt, partly because what are generally referred to as secrets in mystical orders are connected with ecstatic experience. The training for the receiving of this experience does not seem to have been given in any form by the Rosicrucians. There was a great deal of symbolism, but nothing is said, even by apostates from the order, about mystical experience. If this is not true of all Rosicrucianism, it certainly was of the Asiatic Knights, which were rightly called a fee trap of no mean order, like the spurious Masonic degrees. Figure I. Path of the Rose Society identification emblem. In 1781, a man called Fraxinus was provincial Grand Master of the 4 United Masonic Lodges in Hamburg. Unknown to the Masons, he was running a Rosicrucian order from whose members he obtained a good deal of money. He was eventually cornered by one Cadranus, who felt that he had been overcharged at $150 for various initiations. Cedrinus published an attack upon these activities but was expelled as being corrupted. This is a mere sample of numerous spurious and other initiations whose candidates were kept on tenterhooks, expecting that one day, when they attained a high enough degree, all would be made manifest to them. It seems that it never was. But Rosicrucianism was able to survive the most adverse publicity and the association of the worst scoundrels with its tenets. It spread from one country to another. Lodges were set up here and there. The only country where it had but limited success was France. In 1623, there had been a determined publicity drive. Notices appeared posted up in the streets of Paris informing the populace that Rosicrucians dwelt and walked invisibly in the city. But perhaps due to the power of Catholicism, the movement seems to have made little progress here. The movement still thrives. Lavishly produced and privately published books continue to appear, purporting to contain the truths of Rosicrucianism. They are, of course, unintelligible to the general public. It is not until he joins and reaches the requisite degree of initiation, and has shown his patience, that the candidate can partake of these delightful mysteries. The position today is so confused that it is more than possible that some of the various societies known as being of the Rose Cross are teaching doctrines which differ widely from those which have become known as Rosicrucian ones. A recent writer goes so far as to suggest in this connection that teaching and knowledge changes with the age in which it is given out. Hence, for all that anyone knows, new truths and real knowledge may be available from such sources. The English Rosicrucian Society told its members in 1871 that it was purely interested in antiquarianism and literature, and not in the supposed secrets of the original order. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe and comment, and if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.